Hey everybody, Daniel Fusco here, and welcome to today's 2-minute message. You saw the title. I bet you don't like it. You're never going to have enough. And we always feel that way. We live in a day and age where our culture tells us no matter how much you have, it's never enough. I remember hearing that John D. Rockefeller, of the great Rockefeller family fortune, they said, Mr. Rockefeller, you've been so successful. How much is enough? And he said, just a little bit more. See, we live with this reality that we live in a world of scarcity. There will never be enough. And so we keep everything back. We have a tendency to hoard. Now think about that. Scarcity leads us to the idea of anxiety, where all of a sudden now we're worried that we don't have enough. So what do? We withhold, we hoard it, we keep it to ourselves. And that's the way the world that we live in works. It's why people never feel like they have enough, where people are always trying to protect themselves because they have a scarcity mentality that leads to anxiety, which ultimately you begin to hoard things. But the Bible teaches a different way of living, a more excellent way. I always love that. You get this, but this is what God is up to. Here's what I want to tell you. God doesn't have a scarcity mentality. God has an abundance mentality, because God knows that He is more than enough in every situation. And because God is the creator and sustainer of all things, He has everything within His power to be able to do whatever He wants to do. And guess the thing is, when you have an abundance mindset because of your faith in Jesus, now all of a sudden you don't have anxiety, you have peace. Because you know that no matter what you have, God, you have this. This is in your hands. You're fine. And then an abundance mentality that leads to peace, it leads to generosity. It leads to us not wanting to hold anything back, us being extravagantly generous, because we realize that we're not dealing with limited resources. We realize that we're following the God of the all-possible. We realize that God is an unlimited resource, that you'll never exhaust God's grace. You'll never exhaust His love. You will never exhaust what He has to offer. And that shift from the scarcity mentality to the abundance mentality, I believe is a huge shift in the life of a person as they're being discipled by Jesus. Now, you might not be understanding this in its fullness. You might need to think about this a little bit. But here's the thing. Every human being has a scarcity mentality except for Jesus. That's why He came. See, remember when the disciples were all there, and there's all these people there? He says, okay, the disciples come and say, you got to get rid of these people. There's thousands of them. We don't have any food. And He's like, well, you give them something to eat. Like, well, where are we going to get food for these people? And you know the story. The kid comes, he's got the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. Jesus takes it, makes everyone sit down. The disciples give it out, and they collect 12 baskets of leftovers. That's the difference between a scarcity mentality, the disciples, and an abundance reality. That's what Jesus has. And it's something that Jesus wants to share with each one of us today. So this is what I want you to do. First, I want you to share this message, because we're all battling with scarcity that leads to anxiety, which makes us withhold or hoard what God is giving us so that we can be able to give out. And then in the comment section, let's just talk about abundance versus scarcity. And I just gave you one biblical example, but for those of you who know the scriptures, you can be pulling out all these different verses to show exactly what we're talking about here. And we want to make that move from our own human-centered scarcity to God's absolute abundance. God bless you today.